it is good to see you again this Monday, and today we are going to start with a story of the UN chief, that is Antonio Guterres, who denounced the belligerence sounding in Gaza. As the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned the ongoing blockade of humanitarian corridors by the belligerents within the escalating violence that is in Sudan through the city of El Fasher, the capital north of Darfur State, which has currently been under a relentless assault by the Rapid Support Forces. We are talking of the RSF, and the two past week, with aid agencies warning of potential genocide looming over the region. Good afternoon, this is Ambassador. With me, your Ambassador, Jennifer Macau. Now, as we continue on the escalation story of Sudan, now speaking at the news briefing during the United Nations Civil Society, that is the conference in Nairobi, Guterres underscored the urgency of the situation, calling for immediate action to address the crisis, also expressing grave concern over the indiscriminate attacks on the civilians, horrific sexual violence against the women and girls, and the obstruction of humanitarian aid efforts. Additionally, he extended his heartfelt condolences to the floods-affected regions of Kenya and the neighboring countries through the United Nations, pledging of the unwavering solidarity with the people of Kenya, same time vowing to continue supporting government-led relief supports. Here is more.
We're concerned about the ongoing war in Sudan, where we are witnessing indiscriminate attacks against civilians, grotesque sexual violence against women and girls, and humanitarians blocked, attacked, and killed. I extend my deepest condolences to all those affected by the devastating floods that have swept through Kenya and neighboring countries. The United Nations stands in solidarity with the Kenyan people. And we will continue working hand in hand to support government relief efforts in any way that we can.
Well, so much coming from Sudan. Now, moving on to Kenya on Friday, that is Kenya joined 142 other states in supporting the bid by the state of the Palestine to become a full member of the state. Kenya joined, among other countries, with the United States, staying apart in being a part of this bid. Here is more on the same.
In favor, 143.
Kenya officially voted in Palestine to be a permanent member of the UN in a voting exercise that was conducted in the UN Assembly on 10th May 2024. This is after Palestine was voted overwhelmingly by 143 UN member states, whereby 9 voted against.
Against 9. Abstentions 25.
The vote to Palestine by Kenya places the country's relationship with the US in question, since two states have close ties with each other.
A yes vote is a vote for Palestinian existence. It is not against any state.
The vote to Palestine UN permanent membership comes in days after the US promised to set a training base for the Kenyan troops ahead of their deployment to Haiti. Will Kenya's vote to Palestine hinder the ties with the US government? Will this be treated as betrayal, or will it affect the bond that was there between the two countries, considering the fact that Kenya and the US have been close allies for a very long time?
United Nations.
Well, pardon the pun. Now, moving on, the internet users in East Africa were on Sunday hit by slow internet speeds after a major subsea fiber cut that caused an internet outrage in the region. Several internet services providers in East Africa and South Africa suffered outages following the incident, through the network provider stating that they were working on restoring a stable internet connection, among them being the regional telecoms giant Safaricom, whose Wi-Fi and the cellular internet users complained of unusually slow speeds on social media. Here is more report.
Internet access across several East African countries was disrupted on Sunday due to damaged undersea cables. Global Web Monitor Network said the internet surveillance group said Tanzania and French Indian Ocean island Mayotte were the hardest hit. In quotes, the incident is attributed to failures affecting the Seacom and Easy subsea cable systems, NetBlock said on X, formerly Twitter, referring to submarine communications cable that connect the region. According to Tanzania's Information and Technology Minister Nape Nnauye, the faults were on cables between Mozambique and South Africa. Mozambique and Malawi were seeing a medium impact, while Burundi, Somalia, Rwanda, Uganda, Comoros and Madagascar had less severe outages. NetBlock said West African nation of Sierra Leone was also affected. Services had been restored in Kenya, but according to NetBlocks, many users reported patchy connectivity. Kenya's biggest telecoms operator, Safaricom, said it activated redundancy measures to minimize interruption. It, however, said users may experience reduced internet speeds. Most of the world's internet traffic passes through scores of fiber optic cables laid along seafloors, with one of the longest at 15,000 kilometers stretching from Portugal to South Africa. In 2009, Seacom launched a site. Several West African and South African countries suffered similar outages in mid-March because of damage of the cables. Reporting for the Ambassador, I'm Hilary Kabila.
Now, quite a story now. I have a story that is encouraging coming from Uganda. We are in the heart of the rural Uganda, where the challenges of sickle cell disease weigh heavily on the communities. One woman, that is Barbara Manabulo, a 37-year-old woman who's embarked sickle cell disease since infancy, has been leading a crusade of hope. Despite facing stigma and discrimination, Barbara has been on a mission to educate and empower her community about this often misunderstood condition through sharing her story of survival to the community. Here is more.
Important, like someone who'd grow up or someone who's supposed to get an education. Because they used to tell my mother that people like me don't grow, we can't go to school, and we don't produce children. So as a child, my mother looked after me, and she stopped taking me to the hospital when I was 12 years old. So, when I was 12, she'd put me in a taxi from our village, and she'd tell me to go to the clinic.
Before he was 2 years back, he was falling sick, but we didn't know which disease that. So when we confirmed when he was 2 years in Africa, then from there we started struggling with him, struggling up to now.
During that time when Barbara was born, anyway, if someone had sickle cell, people looked at us just being sickly like that. But I think up to this moment, people have they are getting some little light due to this radio information.
I would say a wonder drug. It has changed the course of managing children with sickle cell. We used to be so frustrated, you know. You care for a child, then they reach like 12 years, and they get so many complications. And even you start wishing and saying, this child. So because of that trauma, hydroxyurea has now changed it. Like it improves on the what? On the quality of life of this patient.
Well, it looks like Uganda has a miracle drug pertaining sickle cell. We can be able to learn from them. Now, moving on, tensions between Niger and Benin have escalated further over a decision by Cotonou to prevent its landlocked neighbor from using its port to export the fast crude oil as border dispute between the two regions rages on. Niger Prime Minister Al-Mahama Lamine Zeine stated on Saturday that Benin blockade of its oil exports violated trade agreements between the two countries with Niamey Chinese partners in a commitment that further escalated to a dispute, making the country's blockade currently posing a significant challenge to Niger's plans to export crude oil to China under a lucrative $400 million deal and a 2,000-kilometer-long pipeline built by China connecting Niger's Agadem oil field to Benin port in the capital. Now, moving on, we are checking on the war on Israel and the Rafah extensive that has continued as Israel tanks and jets further bombarded eastern Rafah, that is last-minute ceasefire, causing between Israel and the Hamas broke down in Cairo. As footages released by the Israel army indicated soldiers entertaining Rafah and engaging in urban warfare as Israel jets and attack drones also carried out airstrikes on the eastern part of Rafah, with more than 100,000 Gazan civil fleeing the besieged city. Through President Joe Biden threatening the heart of some military states, the Israel Netanyahu President Prime Minister attacked Rafah, the Israel leader appearing to dismiss the threat, stating that Israel would fight with fingernails if necessary. Here is more.
We are determined and we are united in order to defeat our enemies and those who want to destroy us. If we need to stand alone, we will stand alone. I have said that if necessary, we will fight with our fingernails. But we have much more than fingernails, and with that same strength of spirit, with God's help, together we will win.
I've known Joe Biden for many years, 40 years and more. We often had our agreements, but we've had our disagreements. We've been able to overcome them. I hope we can overcome them now, but we will do what we have to do to protect our country, and that means protect our future.
Well, and that international news brings us to our first break. There is more coming up for you. Next, we'll talk about the war in Sudan and the Somalia request to the UN to end political mission in the nation. And the Mali National Dialogue, which suggested the junta should now take the extension in the rule. Don't forget, this is a country that has been led by coup for a long time. We'll also get to see about South Sudan as it gears for elections and the Somalia by Doha Somali progress challenges. Also, the UN chief condemning Israel offensive on the Rafah troops. We have this and more lined up for you shortly after the break. Stay tuned with us.
Mtu aliniinspire, let's say my husband, because yeye ndo alikuwa hiyo biashara.
So maybe unaweza tuambia hizo challenges zile unapitia, then how do you overcome them?
Like sometimes hadi nakupeanga do, nilikuwa nimeshikilia kitu yako, ukirudisha do yangu na kupatia.
Kwa hivyo it's like
inaitangwa small. Unajua, let me tell you, uzuri ya biashara, ukiwa umeka useme vitu mingi pamoja. Like ukikosa kuuza sockets, utauza viatu. Ukikosa kuuza viatu, furniture zitaenda. Environment. Mtu au learn environment kwanza, unaona. Unajua inaweza kuuko place na kuuzi mandazi. So nikiweka mandazi, kutakuwa na place ya kuuzwa mandazi, so they all come. Mtu anaishi Githurai, unataka kwenda kumwekea Air Force za box. Atanunua saa ngapi?
Na mwenye ananunua anajua mahali zinatoka.
Mtu aliniinspire, let's say my husband, because yeye ndo alikuwa hiyo biashara.
So maybe unaweza tuambia hizo challenges zile unapitia, then how do you overcome them?
Like sometimes hadi nakupeanga do, nilikuwa nimeshikilia kitu yako, ukirudisha do yangu na kupatia.
Kwa hivyo it's like inaitangwa
small. Unajua, let me tell you, uzuri ya biashara, ukiwa umeka useme vitu mingi pamoja. Like ukikosa kuuza sockets, utauza viatu. Ukikosa kuuza viatu, furniture zitaenda. Environment. Mtu au learn environment kwanza, unaona. Unajua inaweza kuuko place na kuuzi mandazi. So nikiweka mandazi, kutakuwa na place ya kuuzwa mandazi, so they all come. Mtu anaishi Githurai, unataka kwenda kumwekea Air Force za box. Atanunua saa ngapi?
Na mwenye ananunua anajua mahali zinatoka.
Everywhere, GBS.
Well, welcome back. You are still watching the Ambassador GBS Global at 1, and we are glad to have you on board with us. Now we are moving on to Somalia. As Somalia has formally requested the United Nations to terminate its political mission within this country, citing strategic priorities in the face of ongoing attacks by the Al-Qaeda-linked extremist group of Al-Shabaab. In a letter addressed to the Security Council and the Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Somali Foreign Minister Ahmed Mahalim, that is Fuki, expressed the government's decision following careful considerations of their strategic objectives. The current mandate of the mission, known as UNSOM, was yet to expire on October 31st, prompting Fuki's call for the swift procedures to conclude the mission by then, a mission that has played a significant role in collaborating with the African Union peacekeepers through its mandate encompassing support for peace reconciliation efforts, strategic policy, advice, as well as promotion of human rights and gender equality. The request for the mission termination comes amidst intensified attacks by Al-Shabaab in response to the United States announcing of the plans to build a 5 military base for the Somali army, aiming to strengthen its capacity to combat the extremist group. The Ndanda Brigade, established in 2017 through US-Somalia agreement, has been a crucial in responding to Al-Shabaab attacks through serving as a rapid response force, mostly in the nation. Listen in.
Somalia has formally requested the United Nations to terminate its political mission within the country, citing strategic priorities in the face of ongoing attacks by the Al-Qaeda-linked extremist group, Al-Shabaab.
Well, now we are moving on to Mali, as in a recent dialogue in Mali that was concluded with recommendations supporting the extension of military rule for the several of more years, through participants mainly from the military proposing that Colonel Assimi Goïta, the leader of the junta who seized power in 2020, should be allowed to run for the presidency in the future elections. However, the dialogue was marked by significant opposition, boycotts, with critics accusing the military of using the process of prolonging its hold on power. Mali has experienced successive coups in 2020 and 2021, leading to the military rule, where initially promises were made to transition to civilian governance through democratic elections, but these plans have been indefinitely postponed due to security concerns stemming from the jihadist attacks. Now, also in April, the military authorities further tightened their grip by suspending all political activities and clamping down on opposition figures, journalists, and human rights activists. In the nation, UNMISS has remained ramping up its efforts to protect the displaced persons in Tambura, that is the western of Equatoria. In the wake of a resurgence of intercommunal conflict, hundreds of displaced Sudanese and persons, including women, children, and the elderly, fled from their homes with little more than clothes on their backs, through many seeking shelters near the temporary base operated by UNMISS in Tambura.
The focus of our discussion today was in two main parts. The first was around the state building process, the issues around the constitution, the role of the NCC, and elections. And the President assured me of his commitment to an inclusive dialogue, including work he'll be doing to try and encourage President Denny from Puntland to return to the NCC to ensure his voice is heard as they debate and reflect on the agreement around the first 4 chapters of the Constitution, and of course prepare for the debate that will take place on the remaining chapters. Talked about the elections, and I commended the President for the work already done to formulate district councils here, and in particular the fact that he has good female representation on 6 of his district councils, so that is very good progress and to be showcased. Going ahead, we discussed the importance of one person, one vote at district level, recognizing there's still work to be done to get the laws in place, to do voter registration and so on. But I think we both agree that it is at the district level that democracy needs to embed in any society, and that is therefore an important priority going forward. We talked about the fight against Al-Shabaab, the importance of the campaign continuing, followed on by stabilization to showcase the role of the state in areas recovered from Al-Shabaab. And then linked to security, we talked about the ATMIS troop presence and how important they have been in providing an enabling security environment. And as we transition into the new AU mission, the importance of having adequate security, including through ENDF forces, who've played a particularly important role. Baidoa is suffering from enormous humanitarian challenges, and we are both committed to trying to transition out of humanitarian crisis response into building resilience and development, including through Baidoa accessing climate finance that will be coming to Somalia.
Well, and that news brings us to the end of our Ambassador GBS Global. It's been a pleasure having you on board, joining us to the end. And just to do a small recap for you, we've talked about Kenya, who joined 142 states in backing UN Palestine membership. We'll tell you how this story continues to unfold. We've also talked about the undersea cable damage disrupt. That was the internet access across Africa that was able to disrupt many internets. We are going to keep you more updated on the same. Not forgetting about Sudan, UF, that is the UN, Antonio Guterres, who denounced the blockade of humanitarian aid, a humanitarian country that is facing a dire catastrophe in hunger that is looming large. We are going to keep you more updated on the same. And also Uganda, that is overcoming sickle cell, a disease that brings an encouragement to many, showing that everything is possible. We'll keep you more updated on the same. And also, we've talked about the Niger-Benin oil blockade dispute. We're going to keep you more updated as this deal was done by China and it's supposed to bring so much on the country. We have also talked about Mali National Dialogue, which recommends the junta rule extension amid its controversies. We'll keep you more updated on the same. And also, we also talked about Israel that said they are going to fight, even if it is by fingernail, if necessary. And Israel said that despite US stopping the aid sending to the country, they are going to fight, whether be it by fingernail, if necessary. We'll keep you more updated as you stay at the Ambassador, where we give you the latest development. Well, I've been your Ambassador, Jennifer Macau, and I'm glad to see you today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, same time, same place, at 1 p.m. at GBS Ambassador. I wish you all a beautiful and the most superb afternoon. See you then.